we are with another episode of a technical version of the family business, and I am thrilled to have this guest on. I've been watching his company for a while. This is Tom Looby, CEO of Conavi Medical. Tom, thanks so much for being on.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, everyone at our office is very aware of you. You're a bit of a fan favorite, and so having this on has been like a fortuitous as far as timing goes. So to give everybody a little bit of context, just take the first minute and give everyone a bit of a snapshot of Conavi Medical and the technology, and then we can get a little deeper into what makes it awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a number of years ago, an interventional cardiologist in Toronto was performing a procedure, and they had an aha moment, right? Because they know how to use intravascular ultrasound to guide a procedure. They know how to use optics to guide a procedure, but each of them have inherently some blind spots. And so the aha was, what if we combine them into the same catheter? And there was a bit of an arms race at that time by other medical device companies to go and to achieve that feat. We were the first ones to do that. And so we patented the technology, and in the prevailing years, we've been working on perfecting it. And it turns out that while we were perfecting the technology, the market has received, tens of millions of dollars in market development to nurture clinical evidence and so on. And so 2025, is that moment for us where our technology is ready, the market is ready, and we're ready to go at Conavi Medical.
Yeah, it's interesting how imaging's become so critical. There's a few other indications and specializations we're focused on, spine being one, where it matters so much how clear the picture is as it relates to any kind of implant or how you approach whatever it is the procedure you're going to do, and it just changes everything when you can see it clearly. It's amazing what the docs could have done with the limited imaging. Quite honestly, it's a bit of a miracle they were able to be successful at all, considering now how clear it is. And
Yeah,
so,
I completely agree. Like for decades, these procedures were guided by angiography, which is a relatively rudimentary picture, taken from outside of the body. And so, doctors did what they could do with angiography alone. Um, and it certainly limited the type of cases that they could do too. They couldn't take on the most complex cases, with angiography alone. And then along comes ultrasound and along comes optical imaging, or OCT as we call it. And both of them sort of advanced the capability of the physicians during these procedures. And what these clinical evidence is pointing to right now is a 46% reduction in cardiac death post procedure if you use only one of the modalities that we have both of, right? So we're tremendously excited, but I am always impressed by how doctors interpret the lay of the land with the availing technologies that they currently have, right? So if it's IVUS, if it's OCT, they've done the best they could, but we want to present them with a better way to guide their procedures.
now if I have the history right, it's a Canadian-based company, correct?
Founded in Toronto, still headquartered in Toronto as well. We've rounded out our management team so it's a little bit more diverse and global, and will help us as we commercialize our product. But yes, it was founded in Toronto.
And so, from a medical standpoint, when you look at regulatory and reimbursement, I'm curious. You must know the differences because you probably talk about it every day. For some people who are not informed, what are the major differences when you bring a medical device company from Canada to the U.S. and how you handle regulatory, clinical, and reimbursement?
Yeah, so it's true that it's good to be kind of knowledgeable about the different regulatory pathways. We are already cleared in the United States, so we
Hmm.
already have a product that's been cleared for a number of years. What we're doing is working on the next generation, product. We're going to get it cleared later on this year. But for us, it's a 510(k) pathway, right? So we are our own predicate. Years ago, we used an ultrasound device and an optical device as predicates, generated some data, submitted, received clearance. But today it's actually really straightforward for us because we are our own predicate device. And so we have high confidence that the regulatory pathway is going to be somewhat, low risk for us.
Yeah, I read a recent article and educate me a bit on this and anyone else who doesn't know. As far as your guidelines, as far as hitting 1A, I'm gathering from what I can understand from that article that it's significant. But can you break that down for us and why that's something that should be noted?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm often asked by people who are not in my line of work, like, why does it take so long, right? Why does it take so long to develop a product and perfect it and get it cleared? And then you have to do all of the other work, right? The market development work. And that market development work involves developing clinical evidence because doctors were used to just using angiography. Why would I have to change if I've saved all these lives throughout my career and so on? Um, and then you impact guidelines, and then you've got to go and fight for reimbursement and things like that. What I'm happy about, products are already afforded within the DRG in the United States, right? There are actually some sweeteners in reimbursement for imaging already in this space. And with the recent guidelines going to 1A, which I think you can understand 1A is the highest level of evidence that you can have. We believe that reimbursement is going to get even better because it saves lives, as we said. So what I'm happy about for a smallish company, we're public today, but we still have to afford everything that we do, right? We didn't have to pay for the market development. That was done over the course of the last decade by other people who have products, but one of them is IVUS, one of them is OCT. But we can take advantage of all of that clinical evidence because it certainly supports what we do. We present an IVUS image, we present an OCT image. So that clinical evidence covers us, the guidelines cover us, and the reimbursement covers us as well. So it's a great thing to have because typically as a CEO, I would have to go and raise money to go and develop clinical trials. Today, we don't have to do that.
Yeah, every pathway is unique. That's what's great about what we do here at our side is it's like a fingerprint. Every company, every person has a different journey on where they're going, and yours is unique. So you had mentioned about being publicly traded, and that's a great story. I don't know if you want to be able to get into all the depths of it, but you're just uplisted, which congratulations on that. But I'm curious, as it relates to Titan and all the things that have happened to get you public, do you want to get into that a bit and kind of explain
Yeah,
to people how that happens?
absolutely.
Because I think it helps people who are trying to figure out their pathway, what other people have been through.
Yeah, so I get asked an awful lot about Titan Medical, and I will tell you, I know maybe not enough to be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there is a longer history for Titan Medical. There are a lot of fans. There are a lot of folks who, certainly were cheering the company on to succeed with the robotic surgery product. So I don't know much beyond that, right? Because they ran a process a year and a half ago to find a suitor, somebody to merge with them. They were favoring a medical device company. And so after, they evaluated 15, 20 companies, I don't know how many, they selected us. And, we're proud that we impressed upon them that we were a serious company with a great potential. And I think we're making the most of that. So Titan Medical, we're not going to operate. We inherited their patent portfolio, which is fantastic because I think there's still some additional monetization opportunities within that portfolio. But by and large, we're not going to operate their business. We do have some of their investors who have, found us to be very interesting and are still investors in Canavi Medical. But then we're building out the rest of our investor base with people who are excited about us primarily and not necessarily what the Titan Medical business was all about.
And so the uplisting to, is it OTCQB? Is that the investment?
Sure. So we have two listings. We elevated just recently, as of last week, to the OTCB in the United States, and we're traded on the TSXV in Canada.
Okay.
We inherited, the previous listings from Titan, and then what we did a minor upgrade in the States. Eventually, we want to go and be listed on NASDAQ. I had an opportunity to take another company onto NASDAQ a few years ago. We kind of understand, the lay of the land and how to make that happen. So that'll be part of our program moving forward as well.
That's interesting. So the other news that I caught, which is probably not that recent for you, but it is for me, is your growth in Asia. China in particular, you had something happen there that was significant? When you give a little insight, because I love when people are able to say, okay, it's not a small world. We don't have to just stay domestic. There's other opportunities.
Yeah, years ago, even before my time at Canavi, the company, made an agreement with a group within China to commercialize our first generation of product, which they did for a number of years, basically as a way of developing their market over there. And then in December, this is the news that you may have picked up on. They achieved clearance for their next generation product that they designed on our IP. And that did two things for us. It triggered a payment against the debt that we had against them. So we now don't owe them anything in terms of the debt. It was about a 6 million USD retirement of debt. And then it started a royalty stream for us upon the sales of their product to their market. Now our partner, remains in China. We held back certain things with regard to the technology, but they're a great partner for us. So we're excited. We cheer them on. And they are really serious about developing the cardiovascular business in China.
I just like having other avenues of growth. If you put all your eggs in one basket, I mean, we all know the old cliche, and it's interesting. You could become an expert in one particular geography or one particular niche within your products, but it's limiting. And you
Yeah.
seem to have thought this through. Now, one of the things that I always probe, because obviously what we do is hiring and retention, and going through what you all are going through now, it's a bit of a growth spurt. You have some momentum. You've been at this for a few years, so retaining your people is just as important as hiring the new ones. So talk a bit about the culture that you've built and your ability to keep people there, and then think about, okay, well, what do we do to bring in these people to let them know how fantastic this company is and be able to attract the top talent that you want?
You know, when I joined, there was a lot going on. So my MO, it tends to be the CEO that comes in after the spark of innovation, right? There's smarter people who know how to invent things and so on. And so I tend to be the one that comes in, helps to round out the management team, stabilize things, that kind of thing. And so that was all going on in 2021 as well as COVID, right? So then, we got post-COVID and there's a lot of things in flux. So you're exactly right, Matt, to say retention is a key thing. Your firm has been great at helping us recruit new folks as well, but the retention of the core group of developers, commercializers, operators that we have within the business has been key. The other aspect that I want to talk about, Matt, is we were almost exclusively Toronto-based, Canadian, et cetera, right? Which is fantastic. However, we wanted to round out sort of the center of excellence that we had in Toronto by engaging, folks from other countries and other organizations. So we did that as well. And starting in 2022, we have a co-development project with two companies in Minnesota. We've recruited senior talent from the United States to work with us on the senior team. All of that has been important to kind of round out the company that we are today.
Minitronics?
Minitronics and a company called Resolution Medical. Yeah, Minitronics is our design partner for the console computer aspect, the capital part of our business. And Resolution Medical has helped us design the next generation catheter. They happen to be 6 miles apart from each other,
Really?
and our VP of R&D also resides in Minneapolis, so it's worked out very well.
Yeah, it's always a slippery relationship because they don't work for you. They work with you, and they have other clients and other situations. And sometimes you have to stamp your feet a bit to make sure that everything is done the way it's supposed to be done when it's been supposed to be done. And it's interesting. So talk about that for a second, what it's like for a CEO with that relationship, because you're almost, I would guess, more partners than you are anything else. And so what goes into that relationship? How do you maintain it while still being firm when things need to be done in a certain time?
You know, this is key, right? And I will say that culturally, and we are not alone in this, we have a bit of a non-invented here not invented here syndrome within our company. We had to, right? Because we were doing unique things with our technology for 10 years before anybody else was thinking about it, right? So we invented it all inside how to combine these two modalities. But at a certain point, you have to tap the expertise of others, right? And so you say the word partnership, and for some people, they can use that as a euphemism for a contract or whatever. I think we truly believe in partnership, right? Um, not everybody's perfect. We aren't perfect. Our partners are not perfect. And so how do you develop that sort of trust and forgiveness? And it isn't always perfect, right? So that's the whole thing. Like we can't stand here and say we're holier than thou and our partner didn't get it done. They can't say the same thing about us. The other thing I will say is that they are a machine that produces something else that we don't produce. They produce, a finished design, and we do one finished design, right? So because of that, they've got procedures and processes that they have to be, I'm talking about Minitronics or resolution, that have helped to drive their business. But for us, it is what we do 24 hours a day, right? And so I think that that's important is to kind of understand that. I think similarly, like when you're partnering with a large strategic to do a co-marketing deal, they have a different way of doing things. They can live or die because they have multiple products in their portfolio. We only have one product in our portfolio. So those sort of things we just have to kind of work through with our partners over time. But I'm very happy with where we are. I think that by engaging Minitronics and Resolution, we have shortened our time to market for our next generation product, and we've probably made a better product to be sure than we could have by ourselves.
So that leads us to the big question is what's next. So the way it's being staged, you expect it to be submitted this year and approved next year? Is that the plan?
Yeah, we've retired the technical risk. We are preparing our file for submission. We're doing, boring things like, design verification
Yeah.
testing and things like that. But 99% of the design is finished, and we're submitting later on this year. We're stating publicly that we'll submit in the second half of 2025. It's a simple 510(k) process, as I mentioned. We expect it to be relatively short form, we hope, because we already have a product that has been cleared in the United States. And then after we get our clearance in the US, we'll go to other geographies like Canada, Europe, and then beyond that.
So we haven't really discussed investment at all. I'm curious what your pathway is there, considering when you get closer to commercialization, usually there's another round, but you already have a commercialized product. So it's a bit of an interesting situation. So where are you from a financing standpoint?
Yeah, we happen to be, and I don't know when this is going to air, but we happen to be in the market for financing live as we speak.
Okay.
Um, we announced a submission of a prospectus at the end of January. We've iterated on that, and we expect that to be finalized soon, hopefully. And we'll build a book. But basically, what this round is for us is our first round as a public company,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got to introduce ourselves to a wider range of folks than we have talked to in the past. What I'm happy to say is that going public has helped us with those opportunities. We are much more relevant to a larger number of investors than we were before. So high confidence that we're going to finish our financing. That will get us, to that submission, and then commercialization for us. We'll go back to the same hospitals where we have been with version one, and we'll expand beyond that. But we'll probably implement more of a crawl, walk, run scale up in our commercial efforts after we had that launch.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many companies I've seen that have overhired when it comes to sales folks and given large guarantees and gotten so aggressive because they want to hit while the iron's hot. Well, there's limits to that, and I've seen that you're almost better off getting 5 to 10 sensational reps, paying them well, than trying to hire 35 and it just being more than you're ready for. You're kind of building the plane as you're flying it, which is a very slippery thing to do when it comes to a sales force. Because as soon as you change their comp plan, half of them are going to leave.
Yeah.
And so you're better off building it right and have them work a little harder at the beginning until you can fill out the rest of the team than doing it the other way around and having to have layoffs and things like that. That's no fun for anybody.